She enters the courtroom smiling, confident she'll be out soon. 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick believes she'll walk free on bond. Her attorneys paint a careful picture: a harmless teenager, someone incapable of violence, let alone the crimes she's facing. Family members nod along. Her grandfather insists she's innocent. Her father promises she's never shown a single red flag. But cracks are already forming. While the defense speaks, Sarah's online behavior tells a very different story. The judge listens, appears receptive, almost convinced, and then everything changes. The prosecution calls its witness. Her stepfather's sister takes the stand, not in support, but pleading with the court to keep Sarah behind bars. The confident smile fades. The room shifts. Two people are dead, and investigators have uncovered something unsettling about Sarah's behavior after the murders, something that becomes impossible to ignore. Before their deaths, Sarah had turned to TikTok. She reached out to true crime influencers, urging them to cover the very murders she was accused of committing. She wanted attention. She wanted the story told. Her story. This was a case where charm and family loyalty weren't enough. If this case is new to you, stay with me. Because what happened on the morning of February 20th, 2025 challenges everything we think we know about family, guilt, and how far a teenage girl's world can unravel. Thursday morning, February 20th, 2025, around 7:15, Tyus Road, Carrollton, Georgia. A 5-year-old girl walks into her parents' bedroom. What she finds is a scene no child should ever witness. Her father, 45-year-old James Brock, and her mother, 41-year-old Kristen Brock, lie on the floor, lifeless, blood pooling beneath them. Her screams echo through the house. 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick rushes in. She tries to calm her younger half-sister Jay, but it's impossible. The child is hysterical, so Sarah makes a decision. She calls the police. Officers arrive within minutes. Nearly half a dozen respond. They find the couple together in the bedroom, both suffering multiple gunshot wounds. But almost immediately, investigators notice what doesn't fit. No signs of a struggle, no forced entry, no broken windows, no kicked-in doors. Just two people shot dead in their sleep. One door is left slightly ajar. The home is sealed off. Yellow tape surrounds the property. Crime scene technicians move in. Evidence preservation becomes critical. This feels like an inside job. Someone who knew the family. Someone who knew their routines. When they slept, where they slept. But investigators can't say that yet. The evidence has to speak. There's another urgent question. Where will the surviving children go? Social services needs an answer immediately. Caitlin O'Keefe steps forward, offering to take both girls into her care. She's a familiar face. Before Sarah's biological father divorced her mother, Caitlin had been friends with him. James Brock was Sarah's stepfather, not her biological parent, and that distinction matters more than anyone realizes at this point. With a known guardian in place, life appears to return to some version of normal. Sarah goes back to school within days. Teachers notice something unsettling. She's calm, composed, almost too composed for someone who has just lost both parents in a brutal way. No emotional collapse, no visible shock, just a controlled exterior that doesn't quite match the situation. But behind that calm, something darker is already taking shape. What the defense doesn't know yet will soon become the prosecution's strongest weapon. To understand how this case unfolds, you need to understand the family dynamics. Kristen Brock was divorced before marrying James. They had been together for nearly 10 years before tying the knot in December of 2023, creating a blended family. Sarah and her brother were from Kristen's first marriage. 5-year-old Jay was from James's previous relationship. From the outside, they looked stable, even happy. But appearances can be dangerously misleading. James Brock suffered from severe heart disease. He lived with an LVAD, a left ventricular assist device, a mechanical pump surgically implanted to keep his failing heart working, battery-powered, external components, a constant reminder that his life depended on machinery. It was a last-resort measure while he waited for a heart transplant. He had nearly died in 2021. Kristen had posted online begging for prayers. He survived then. But he wouldn't survive February 20th, 2025. This is the version of events the defense wants the court to believe. From the outside, this couple presented themselves as reformed, devoted parents who had turned their lives around. But court documents paint a far more complicated picture. Both Kristen and James had a documented history of drug use. That history played a major role in the collapse of Kristen's first marriage to Sarah's biological father in 2018. In custody filings, the court stated that the mother had unrehabilitated substance abuse issues and that both she and her boyfriend failed to provide a stable, drug-free environment for the children. A bitter custody battle followed. Eventually, joint legal custody was granted, with Kristen receiving primary physical custody while Sarah's biological father saw the children on alternating weekends. According to friends and family, the couple claimed those darker years were behind them. They said they had found religion, changed their ways, and rebuilt their lives. They became deeply involved with Catalyst Church in Carrollton, about 45 miles west of Atlanta. They attended services regularly, volunteered, and presented themselves as committed to both their faith and their family. When James and Kristen died, the church held a memorial service. The pews were filled. Family members spoke. James's oldest son from a previous marriage delivered an emotional tribute. Tears flowed freely. Grief was raw and visible. Sarah was allowed to speak as well. She stepped up to the pulpit and addressed the congregation. Watching the video of that service later, one detail stands out. Everyone else who spoke struggled to get through their words. Voices cracked, tears fell. The pain was unmistakable. Sarah, however, showed none of that. Her voice remained steady, controlled, almost rehearsed. No shaking, no tears, no visible grief for the two people who had been raising her. Some people in attendance noticed immediately and whispered about it afterward. Others rushed to defend her. Everyone grieves differently, they said. Maybe she was in shock. Maybe trauma had numbed her emotions. Then investigators uncovered something that shifted the entire case. Before the murders, Sarah was active on TikTok like many teenagers her age. She spent hours scrolling, watching videos, following trends, and creating content. She was especially drawn to true crime. She consumed case after case, learning how investigations unfold, how suspects are identified, how narratives are built. She understood the genre deeply, the patterns, the language, the way public opinion forms. After her parents were killed, Sarah began doing something investigators found deeply unsettling. She started reaching out to true crime influencers. Not one or two, but many. Across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Dozens of messages, all with the same goal. She wanted them to cover her parents' murders, the very crimes she would later be accused of committing. She framed it like content, like a story pitch, like entertainment. Court records show that the messages were eerily similar, almost templated. One creator received a message that read, "Hey, I was wondering if you would be able to cover my parents' murder case. It's super interesting, and I think your audience would love it." Super interesting. Those were her words to describe the violent deaths of the people who raised her. The creator was disturbed and immediately contacted authorities. Screenshots were preserved. Timestamps documented. Messages were turned over to investigators who were already building a case. Soon, other creators came forward with nearly identical messages. It became clear Sarah wasn't reaching out randomly. She was methodically contacting influencers, trying to shape how the story would be told before she was even publicly named as a suspect. The defense argued this was simply a grieving teenager searching for answers, coping in the only way she knew how through true crime media she'd always consumed. Prosecutors saw something very different. They saw calculation. They saw narrative management, someone trying to control public perception before charges were filed. To them, this wasn't grief. It was damage control. As investigators dug deeper, they began reconstructing the morning of the murders minute by minute. The timeline, the movements, Who was awake and who was? Sarah told police she had slept through everything. She told investigators she didn't hear anything unusual. She said she woke up only after her little sister's screams echoed through the house. According to Sarah, she never heard gunshots. But what truly shattered the defense wasn't what she denied hearing. It was what she admitted hearing next. Remember the LVAD machine James relied on to stay alive? That detail became crucial. Sarah told investigators she heard the LVAD alarm that night, the loud, persistent beeping designed to signal a medical emergency. These devices don't make subtle sounds. Their alarms are built to be impossible to ignore, starting loud and escalating even louder as the situation becomes more critical. They activate during catastrophic events such as power failure, cardiac arrest, or internal bleeding. The sound is urgent by design, meant to force immediate action. In her official statement, Sarah said she went to bed around midnight on February 19th. She also said she heard the LVAD alarm sometime between 11:40 and 11:50 p.m. just minutes before falling asleep. Let that sink in. She heard a critical medical alarm coming from the device keeping her stepfather alive. Yet she didn't get out of bed. She didn't check on him. She didn't wake her mother. She didn't call for help. She simply went asleep. That contradiction became devastating. Sarah claimed she clearly heard the LVAD alarm, remembered it well enough to include it in her statement, but somehow didn't hear multiple gunshots fired inside the same house just down the hall. Gunshots that killed 2 people. The defense argued deep sleep, exhaustion, teenage sleep cycles. Teenagers sleep heavily, they said. Science supports that. But prosecutors saw something else entirely. They believed she knew exactly what was happening, because she was the one making it happen. And that wasn't the only problem. Forensic analysis of the crime scene revealed details that made the defense's version even harder to believe. Ballistics and trajectory analysis showed the shooter stood very close to both victims. This wasn't a random attack from a distance. James and Kristen were shot multiple times at close range while they slept. There were no defensive wounds, no signs of a struggle. They never had a chance to react. The bedding was mostly undisturbed, the comforter still partially covering them, pillows in place. Death came swiftly and silently. Investigators processed the scene meticulously. Every surface was dusted for fingerprints. Fibers were collected. Blood spatter patterns were analyzed. Shell casings were photographed and logged. Reconstruction specialists mapped bullet trajectories. Downstairs, the house appeared normal. The kitchen was clean. The living room undisturbed. Nothing suggested chaos or intrusion. But upstairs in that bedroom, 2 lives had ended. Neighbors reported hearing nothing alarming that night. No screams. No obvious disturbances. One neighbor later mentioned hearing what sounded like firecrackers around midnight, but in rural Georgia that wasn't unusual. People set them off year-round. No one thought twice about it at the time. Only later would it become clear those weren't fireworks. They were gunshots. For months, the case remained quiet. Media attention faded. Sarah lived with her guardian, returned to school, and resumed daily life. Then, on July 1, 2025, nearly 4 months after the murders, the Carroll County Sheriff's Office submitted an arrest warrant. The charges were staggering. 2 counts of murder. 2 counts of aggravated assault. On July 8, Sarah Grace Patrick turned herself in. Her biological father drove her to the station. She was booked, fingerprinted, photographed, and processed. Prosecutors announced she would be charged as an adult. If convicted, she would face adult penalties, adult prison, adult sentencing. 2 people had been murdered in their sleep, shot multiple times with no mercy shown. The question everyone asked was simple but chilling. How did police connect their own daughter to the murders? Authorities have not released a full public breakdown of the investigation, choosing to protect the integrity of the upcoming trial. But the evidence trail suggests several factors converged. Sarah's age, her deep familiarity with true crime, her understanding of investigative patterns, her awareness of narrative control, and the contradictions in her own words. Together, They painted a picture the defense could no longer explain away. She had consumed hundreds of hours of true crime content: murder cases, cold cases, forensic breakdowns, police interrogations. She understood the patterns, the procedures, the way detectives think. But knowing how crimes are solved and successfully getting away with one are very different things. Theory is not execution. Watching explanations on a screen is nothing like acting under real pressure, in real time, with real consequences. Her devices were seized quickly. Phone, laptop, tablet, all taken into evidence within hours of the murders, before panic could fully set in, before she had time to think strategically or erase her digital trail. Digital forensic experts comb through everything: search histories, text messages, social media activity, deleted files painstakingly recovered. In modern investigations, almost nothing truly disappears. Even data wiped multiple times can sometimes be retrieved. What they found was devastating. Incriminating Google searches made weeks before the murders. How to dispose of a gun? Can police trace bullets? How long does forensic analysis take? Searches that pointed directly to premeditation. Then the messages, texts sent to friends filled with anger and resentment, hatred toward her parents, statements like, "I wish they were dead," "I can't wait until they're gone," "They don't deserve to be parents," screenshots preserved, timestamps documented, context established. Each message became another digital breadcrumb, leading investigators closer to motive. Those TikTok messages suddenly took on a very different meaning. No longer grief-stricken curiosity, not confusion or trauma. Prosecutors saw calculation, manipulation, an attempt to control the narrative before suspicion ever turned toward her. Police have not publicly released a definitive motive, but available information suggests escalating family tension, conflict, and resentment building over time. A neighbor later told local media that Kristen had confided in struggling with Sarah's behavior. Defiance, arguments, issues behind closed doors. The neighbor didn't elaborate, unwilling to speak ill of the dead, but the implication was clear. This was not a perfect household. One critical piece of evidence remained missing: the murder weapon. It was never found at the scene. Police searched exhaustively every room of the house, the yard inch by inch, nearby woods with cadaver dogs and metal detectors, drainage ditches, storm sewers, local ponds, nothing. County records showed no firearms registered to James Brock, none to Kristen, no gun safe, no ammunition, no record of any legal gun ownership in the household. That raised urgent questions. Where did the gun come from? Who provided it? Did that person know what it would be used for? Were there accessories or accomplices? Investigators believe Sarah likely obtained the weapon from an outside source, possibly a peer, a friend of a friend, someone involved in illegal private sales. Georgia's gun laws allow private transactions without background checks, cash sales with no paper trail. After the murders, the weapon was likely disposed of, thrown into water, buried, returned to its source, cleaned of prints, or at least an attempt made. Authorities have not confirmed whether the weapon was later recovered. If it was, forensic links such as fingerprints or DNA could explain the confidence in filing charges. But investigators are saying nothing. No public confirmation. No leaks. Everything remains sealed until trial. Surveillance footage likely played a role. The home sat in a wooded, semi-isolated area, but even rural places aren't invisible anymore. Doorbell cameras, security systems, traffic cameras along main roads. One camera is enough. One clip of movement at the wrong hour. Someone leaving the house late at night or early morning, carrying something, going somewhere they shouldn't. When digital footprints align with physical evidence, cases start to solidify. Then came the moment Sarah believed would end in freedom: the bond hearing. She entered the courtroom smiling, confident she would walk out. Witness statements began. The defense presented character witnesses, people who believed in her innocence. The first to take the stand was the family's pastor, Ben Bonner of Catalyst Church. He spoke of knowing the family for years, witnessing their faith, their transformation, their devotion, a portrait of redemption, stability, and trust. But that carefully painted image, was about to collide with facts the defense could no longer explain away. Next came Caitlin O'Keefe, the woman who took Sarah in after the murders, the person who saw her every day, who watched her routines, her habits, her behavior in the aftermath. O'Keefe testified that she had seen no indication Sarah could do what she was accused of. She described a cooperative teenager, someone who helped with dinner, played with the younger kids, completed her schoolwork, behaved like any other teen coping with an unimaginable loss. The testimony felt sincere. O'Keefe genuinely believed in Sarah's innocence. She saw no warning signs, no red flags, nothing that suggested violence or deception. Other witnesses followed, reinforcing the same image. Teachers, friends, family members all described a good kid. Maybe imperfect, maybe struggling, but not violent, not capable of murder. A teacher testified Sarah was quiet and attentive in class, turned in assignments on time, participated appropriately, helped classmates, never caused trouble, never raised concern. A close friend spoke about years of normal teenage life. Sleepovers, studying together, shopping trips, movies, social media. Nothing alarming, nothing that hinted at what Sarah now stood accused of. On the surface, she seemed normal, even happy at times. The defense appeared to gain momentum. The judge listened closely, taking notes, weighing each statement. At the defense table, there was cautious optimism. Maybe this would be enough. Maybe bond would be granted. Then the prosecution called its witness, and the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted instantly. Kim Bowling took the stand, James Brock's sister, not a character witness, a voice for the dead. Her grief was unmistakable. Her voice broke repeatedly as she spoke. Tears streamed down her face. This was not rehearsed. This was raw, visceral loss. Bowling described how her brother's murder shattered their family, how his children would grow up without their father, how birthdays, holidays, and ordinary moments would forever be marked by absence, how their mother lost a son, how an entire family's world collapsed in a single night. She spoke of James not as a statistic but as a person, a brother, an uncle, a man who fought relentlessly to stay alive despite his failing heart, someone who endured surgeries, pain, and medical uncertainty because he wanted more time, time to watch his children grow, time to receive a heart transplant, time to live. Her grief turned to urgency as she begged the judge to deny bond, to keep Sarah locked up, to protect the community, to ensure justice. She pleaded for Kristen, for James, for the children left behind, for 5-year-old Jay who found their bodies and would carry that memory forever. In Bowling's voice there was no doubt. She believed Sarah was responsible, and she believed releasing her would be a grave mistake. The most devastating testimony came next. A statement written by James' 12-year-old son, too young to speak in court himself, read aloud by family friend Kelly Brown. Nightmares, fear, a childhood fractured by violence, another life permanently altered, the ripple effects spreading far beyond the crime scene. By then, Sarah's confident smile was gone, completely erased. She stared down at the defense table, avoiding eye contact, her posture closed, her composure visibly shaken. The defense made a final attempt to reframe the narrative. Sarah was a child, they argued, a teenager overwhelmed by circumstances, someone who needed treatment, not prison, rehabilitation, not punishment. The judge was unconvinced. After hearing all testimony, bond was denied. Sarah would remain in Carroll County Jail. No release, no house arrest, no ankle monitor, full detention until trial. The charges stood and escalated. 2 counts of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, 2 counts of possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. 8 charges total. The defense cited mental health struggles and diminished capacity, a troubled teenager who snapped. The prosecution pointed to the planning, the missing weapon, the calculated behavior, and the tick-tock messages. This wasn't impulsive. This was deliberate. 2 versions of Sarah Grace Patrick now existed. One, a grieving teenager crushed by tragedy. The other, a calculated killer managing her image and narrative. Prosecutors argued those messages to true crime influencers showed full awareness and understanding of consequences. The defense insisted they were part of her coping process. Evidence suggested something far colder. And then prosecutors revealed one final detail. During forensic analysis of Sarah's devices, something was found. The specifics remain sealed until trial, but sources close to the investigation say it's deeply damaging. Investigators confirmed the case is still active. More evidence may be revealed. And according to court filings, additional arrests connected to these murders are possible.